Ladies and gentlemen, bonsoir tout le monde. On est ici ce soir, le 17 décembre 2022, pour une réunion spéciale, a special public meeting to discuss the budget. I have with me Councillor Leo Azarad, Councillor Andrew Schuster, Councillor Mitch Kajaski, Councillor Dita Burku, Councillor Stephen Erdely, Councillor Sidney Benizri, the City Manager Jonathan Schechter, and of course our City Treasurer Angela Marino, and our City Clerk. And we are going to get started with the questions. So I believe there's one that was written in, the first question. Thank you. I think you need to push the button to hear your microphone.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So the question is from Ms. John Gross. Assuming the 2023 taxes will rise for Côte Saint-Luc homeowners, would it be possible to spread the amount owed over 12 equal payments with no recurring charges?
Right. I'm going to leave this to Councillor Erdely, who's going to be making the presentation today on the budget, and his portfolio is finance.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'll explain. The way it works, in a perfect world, we would say yes. So the reality, though, is that we have to pay what we call our quote-par, or it's our allocation to the agglomeration, in 2 installments. And our tax dates are in line with those 2 installment dates. Now, if we were to allow residents to pay in monthly installments, and then it would force us either to borrow money to be able to pay the quote-par allocation, or we would have to pay interest to the City of Montreal. Either way, it puts us in a difficult situation that we can't afford to do. And for that reason, if residents do choose to pay in 12 months or monthly installments, they have to pay interest charges on that. However, any resident, if they are interested in working out some terms, can reach out to our finance department, but to clarify again, there will be interest charges that the resident must incur. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? No.
Always reopen question period after the presentation. If somebody from the audience showed up.
Okay, so now we're going to go with the presentation of the budget. It's all yours, Councillor Erdely.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just going to get everything organized here. Yeah, and I'll just add that I would say as well for the residents that are watching on Zoom, if they have questions as well, they can always reach out after and ask questions. I'm going to. Perfect. So aujourd'hui, on va faire la présentation du budget de fonctionnement et budget d'investissement pour le plan triennal 2023, 2024 et 2025. We're going to do the presentation of the budget. And before I do, just want to mention that this year was not a simple one. This year, I hate to say it, was probably the hardest budget, certainly since I took on the portfolio of finance, and I would say in the 17 years since becoming a councillor. I'll share some of the points as we do the presentation. I'll also mention that the goal is to keep the presentation to under an hour, so I may go through some of the slides relatively quickly, but residents are free to reach out to us to ask questions if you're watching it. So for those who are watching this on YouTube a bit later, si vous voyez cette émission sur YouTube, vous pouvez nous envoyer une question par courriel. You can reach out to us by email or call us as well. En termes de présentation, on va commencer avec le processus budgétaire, vue d'ensemble du budget de fonctionnement. Je vais parler un peu des taux de taxes foncières, les priorités d'investissement et notre plan triennial. Et après, comme je disais, il va y avoir une période de questions. So at the end, we'll have another opportunity for residents who may have questions. En termes du processus, alors ça a commencé au mois de juin. On avait une consultation publique pré-budgétaire et c'était la première opportunité pour les résidents de demander des questions parce que dans le passé, on avait seulement la présentation du budget au mois de décembre Et on sentait que c'était un peu tard pour avoir des questions parce que le budget était prêt pour adoption. Alors, on commence en mois de juin. Après, en juillet, il y a des réunions avec les directeurs. En septembre, on fait les prévisions budgétaires. Et au mois d'octobre, novembre, on prépare le budget. Et on est ici le 19 décembre pour l'approbation des budgets. In terms of the guiding principles of the budget, so I won't go through all of them, but just to cover some of the main ones. The goal is first to make sure there's a balance between revenues and expenses. We want to make sure that tax revenue cover our operating expenses, but at the same time trying to minimize the increase in taxes, and especially this year was a tough one. We want to try to look at long-term financial viability. We want to look at external funding. It's something we've tried to capitalize on in terms of government grants. I'll be talking a bit more in detail about that later on in the presentation. We also want to make sure that whatever program we put in place is sustainable, whether it's new construction or upgrades. And we want to make sure that, of course, whatever we do is in the end in the best interest of the community as a whole. And of course, one thing we've been working on more is transparency in terms of the budget building process. One of the things I can mention, of course, is that the presentation is available on our city website. Cette présentation est disponible sur notre site web. And as well, you have an Excel spreadsheet that lists the budget. And of course, we'll be posting more information on our website. And it's something we've continued to work harder on to make sure residents have all the information. En termes des budgets, le budget couvre les services locaux et les services d'agglomération. Les services locaux, ça inclut, par exemple, les travaux publics, l'entretien des infrastructures de l'eau, la gestion des déchets, protection civile, loisirs, bibliothèques et le centre communautaire et aquatique. En termes des services d'agglomération, ça inclut la police, sécurité d'incendie, les cours municipales, évaluation, transport, le centre d'urgence 911 et le logement social. Et ça, c'est quelque chose qui n'a pas changé récemment. In terms of the overview, the general overview, and this is the hardest part of the budget to share, is the increase in municipal taxes for an average residential home. So this is a home that has gone up about 38.9%, and I guess there's, so I know what some of the current concerns from residents were that their taxes, some of them called, of course, their properties went up 30, 40, 50%. So the tax rate will not go up that high, of course, but this year the average increase will be 5.95%. I'm looking at the increases the last few years. Last year was 2.25, the year before 0, 1.2, 1.7, 1.5, 1.9. So for most of the last few years, we've been in the range of 1 to 2%. This year, it's the highest increase in at least 15 years. And I'll go into the reasoning a bit more about it in a moment. But basically, this is what we were able to come up with as a good compromise. In terms of taxation revenue, up 7.4%. Revenue up also 7.4%. Our local expenses, and this is something our city manager, our directors, our treasurer, Angela Marino, have been working very hard on, is to reduce our local expenses. So they're up only, or to let's say, minimize the increase, so only up 3.48%, in spite, of course, inflation being higher than this. And that's a testament to the hard work of our city staff. At the same time, our increase to the agglomeration, and this includes covering a portion of the deficit of 2021, is up about 14%. And this is something that's not acceptable. It's not acceptable to Côte Saint-Luc, and it shouldn't be acceptable to our residents as well, but it is something that we have to deal with. And because of this, it has forced us to have the tax increase higher than we would like. In terms of total expenses, of course, when we factor it all in, the increase there is 7.4% as well. And I should mention that this includes a $2.1 million offset, and this was a grant that was given by the provincial government to cover COVID-19 expenses. In the end, we did not have to use it this year, so we're going to actually be using it, or using a portion of it in 2023, and I'll go through more details on that as well a bit later. But all that to say, the average increase for a residential property that includes a house, a condo, townhouses, is up 5.95%. I'll give just some background on the new role. So the new role comes into effect officially on January 1st, 2023, and this is the basis for properties for the next 3 years. It's based on the sale price that was in effect in the summer of 2021. And again, the average in Côte Saint-Luc was 37.8, which is higher than the average for the island of Montreal at 32.4. And in a moment, I'll show a graph that shows the average increase for all the demerged cities on the island of Montreal. I should mention again, what this has done is it's allowed the agglomeration, or I should say the city of Montreal, to pass on more tax or more expenses to the demerged cities who, on average, had a higher increase in their valuation than Montreal. Alors ça, c'est, on peut voir l'augmentation de toutes les propriétés de l'île de Montréal et des propriétés de chacune des villes diffusionnées. Et on peut voir pour la ville de Côte Saint-Luc, c'était à peu près 37,8% en termes de l'agglomération, et même c'était 32,4%, et pour la ville de Montréal, 31,4%. Alors on peut voir que l'augmentation des villes diffusionnées, c'est plus haut que la moyenne, et c'est pour cette raison que Montréal poussé l'augmentation d'un taxe en direction des villes diffusionnées. This caused approximately $18 million to be passed on from the city of Montreal to the demerged cities in terms of extra taxes for the year 2023. Alors, comme je disais, cette année, c'est la première année du nouveau rôle d'évaluation. En termes de l'augmentation, alors, on peut voir pour les maisons unifamiliales, l'augmentation, c'était un peu plus haut, c'était 41,7%. Pour les condos et maisons de ville, c'était un peu moins, 35,8%. Pour les duplex, un peu moins aussi, 33,4%. Et pour les logements de 6+, c'était 38% en termes d'augmentation du nouveau rôle d'évaluation. Et pour les propriétés non résidentielles, l'augmentation était de 30%. So in terms of what does that mean for an average home? So if we look at an average home, again, this includes condos, single-family homes, and townhouses. So the average increase was 38.9%. So if we look at an average home on January 1st, 2022, it was $545,000. That same home is now up to $757,000. Now, what we have tried to do, and this is something we've done in most of the time in the past, not every role, but with a few exceptions, what we've done is spread the increase over 3 years. So what we can, if you can look at the math, so the increase in this average home was up $212,000. If we take that $212,000 divided by 3, it's roughly $70,000 increase, or almost $71,000 increase. So we've spread the increase over 3 years. As we spread it over 3 years, it means for those who've had an increase that's significantly higher than the average, their increase in taxation will not be as bad. So if someone was, I'll give an example, someone was if they were 3% over the average, rather than getting an extra 3% increase, it would be split over 3 years, so they'll get a 1% increase in each of those 3 years. If it was a 9% higher than the average, so again, it'd be rather than a 9% increase in 1 year on top of the average, it would be split in 3, so roughly a 3% increase on top of the average each year. And the goal is to minimize the effect. It also, I should say, works the opposite direction. If someone has a reduction, of course, it minimizes it or spreads it over 3 years as well, but the goal is to try to do this in a way that it's as fair as possible for the majority of residents and taxpayers. So this is an example of an average residential home, again, including house, condo, and townhouse. So we see in 2022, the evaluation was $545,000 for taxation purposes. The new or the new evaluation spread over 3 years would give them an evaluation for 2023 of $615,667. Now, when we factor in the taxes, the municipal taxes, the water reserve, and road reserve, it works out to an increase of $332. Again, a 5.95% increase. Again, it's higher, of course. You could see the previous year, the increase was 2.25 or $123. And again, the increase for previous years was in the 1 to 2% going back about 5-6 years. And that is where we had hoped to be originally. But of course, we're not able to do that based on the excessive increase from the agglomeration. Maintenant, on peut voir une augmentation pour une maison unifamiliale, une maison moyenne. Alors, en termes de maison, l'augmentation de valeur était à peu près 42,3%. On peut voir l'augmentation, c'est plus haut. Pour cette maison unifamiliale moyenne, l'augmentation moyenne, c'était de 7%. Et c'est une augmentation d'à peu près de presque $500, de $498.
Okay, so keep on going.
Yeah.
You're good.
All right, I'm going to keep going. Yeah. So I'm going to continue. I'm going to continue with the revenue. In terms of the revenue, the main portion of our revenue is from taxes. So you can see of the $84 million in total revenue, $72 million is from taxation, and this covers both the local and the agglomeration. We also have, again, this year for the second year, a revenue from a tariff for swimming pools that was put in place. We have some compensation for city services. And in terms of the next one, note number 4, 1.6, almost 1.7 million, that is compensation in lieu of taxes. So this is to cover the taxation that would be received from our federal and provincial buildings. So it includes schools, hospitals, post office, and other revenue, which of course is the revenue coming from the different services and programs the city offers. And I'll be going to more detail on that in a moment. En termes de revenus estimés de taxes, la plupart c'est des propriétés résidentielles, et encore c'est une augmentation de 5,95% en termes de taxes foncières. On a la taxation des appartements, des terrains vacants, les propriétés non résidentielles, de l'eau, et aussi une réserve de la voirie. In terms of the revenue from local improvement tax, so this is a relatively small amount. So this is to cover some local improvement taxes, again, swimming pool tariffs, some compensation for city services. And this is, again, the pool tariff is based on an increase from a new tariff that was put in place last year. I'll continue with the other revenue. So this is what makes up the $10.3 million in revenue that the city takes in. So you can see it covers the different services that are offered, including, for example, the ACC, the library. One that has been stable and increasing, but we're keeping it as is for now, is the property transfer duties. So this is one where we have been able to generate, that has helped generate surpluses in the previous years. We're keeping it stable at $4 million because you never know in terms of tax, in terms of residential sales or property sales, but we're hopeful on this one, but conservative at the same time. Just to mention, you have also miscellaneous, before we get to the bottom, we have some government grants, and we'll be talking about that in a moment. So in terms of the government grants, so this year, actually this year we did quite well, and next year we're predicting to do even better in terms of government grants. Some of the large ones, I'll start at the top, is for what we call the redevance. So this is for waste diverted from landfill. So we expect to receive about $425,000. From Recy Quebec, $240,000. This year, I know we had a record amount, and we hope, of course, to exceed that. What we're seeing is the more waste we are diverting, the more funds we're receiving in terms of grants, and we're hoping, of course, to continue diverting as much waste as possible. We can also see some of the funds for long-term debt, and this is for paying back some of the grants and such we have received where we had to incur some interest. And there's also some funding from the redevance that's deferred for the black bins and for other programs that we're putting in place. Ça, c'est la répartition des revenus. On peut voir la plupart des revenus, presque 86%, c'est le revenu de taxes. C'est quelque chose qui est en réalité pour la plupart des villes diffusionnées, même pour la ville de Montréal. Et c'est quelque chose on réfléchit là-dessus très souvent. Et l'autre grande partie, c'est l'autre revenu, c'est 12,23%. In terms of the operating budget, this is a new slide we put in. So the first one, so these are some external factors and risks that we are cognizant of. The biggest one, of course, is the agglomeration apportionment. So this year, it's $35.6 million, up from $32.4 million. An increase represents 10.1. However, when we weight the factor of, and remove the cost of the deficits, it's an increase of approximately 15%, which is something that doesn't make sense in terms of running a city. We have things, and I should mention also, I'll just mention it now. Yeah, in terms of one of the other issues is also the evaluation in terms of Côte Saint-Luc, and I want to clarify that the evaluation for every home, for every property in Côte Saint-Luc is determined by the central city, is determined by the city of Montreal. It's not something that we have any say in. So just to clarify that as well. Some of the other factors are climate change. We see it, for example, with snow and salt. One of the things I've seen over the last few years is with the up and down cycle of weather, especially in the months of December and January and February, it means more road salt. As the snow melts and freezes and thaws and so on, we have to spend more and more money on salt. In the summer, of course, we're seeing the heat island effect, and we're seeing the results of climate change in terms of more hot days that require the pool to stay open longer, require us, of course, to make sure our residents are safe throughout some of the heat waves. The public tender competition is becoming more difficult. Water main breaks, although our water main breaks are down, the cost of each break can still be heavy in terms of budget. Inflation rate, which is causing rising costs and supply chain issues, and high interest rates, which of course are causing issues in terms of our long-term debt and the interest payments. The real estate market conditions, again, I talked about the assessments and the sales. We hope that people will continue to buy homes and sell homes, but of course we don't know with interest rates rising if that will cause a slowdown in the real estate market. Demographics and lifestyle changes. As the community ages or gets younger, of course, it affects the programs we offer and the services we offer for residents, and technological trends. Of course, trying to keep up to date, make sure our residents have access to all the technological needs in terms of access to programs, access to our services. Right now, as an example, residents can access their property tax statement online. So if you're interested in that, you can go to our city website for more information on that as well. En termes de l'augmentation du budget, on a vu que, comme je disais, l'inflation, et ça c'est un peu conservatif, c'est un taux de 4%. C'est basé sur les estimations du Conference Board of Canada. On peut voir c'est à 4%. On espère que ça probablement serait plus 5, vers 5 ou 6%. Même si c'était 4%, notre augmentation des dépenses locaux était 3,48%. En termes de dépenses d'agglo, c'était vers 14%. Alors, c'est beaucoup plus haut que l'inflation. Et c'est, comme je disais, c'est un grand problème pour la ville de Côte Saint-Luc et aussi pour les villes de fusionnées en général. If we look at, so just to look at that in comparison to our budget, so our local expenses are 57% of our total expenses. The agglomeration expenses are about 42%. So you can imagine, even though that it's 42%, when you are increasing it by 14%, of course, it causes a significant increase in the costs and the expenses for the city, which is something that we have to pass on to the residents. And ultimately, that is what led to the 5.95% increase in taxes for the average home. En termes de dépenses locaux, alors ça, c'est les grandes sections des dépenses locaux. Alors, on peut voir en total, c'est une augmentation de 3,48%. Et dans les prochaines minutes, je vais parler un peu de chacune de ces sections en plus de détails. So, in terms of the agglomeration apportionment, so as mentioned, the total increase is 14%. In terms of the fixed cost, it's an increase of about 10%. Now, one of the biggest ones is increase in water, and it's increasing for two reasons. One, the central city has increased the price per cubic meter, and this is something that's progressively gotten larger and larger over the last few years. I think back to a few years ago, we were paying about 10 cents per cubic meter. Last year was about just over 23 cents, and now it's about 24.5 cents per cubic meter. So we're seeing significant increases in the cost of water over the last few years. What we're also seeing is that residents of Côte Saint-Luc have been using more water, and this is something that's a bit of an alarming trend. And it's for this reason we are working harder in terms of putting in water meters for what we call ICI, industrial, commercial, and institutional properties. And in the next year or two, we're going to be doing a pilot project with 380 residential homes or residential properties, including some homes with pools, without pools, and some of the apartment buildings as well, to get a sense in terms of their water use. I'll be getting a water meter myself. This is more to get a better sense. Residents will continue to be charged based on their property evaluation, not based on usage, at least not until every home has a meter, which will take several years, of course. And I'll just mention again that we have offset the increase from the agglomeration by transferring $2.1 million from the surplus, which was an amount from the provincial government that we had thought we were going to use in the past, but did not need to. And I'll be going to a bit more detail on that in a moment. And I guess just to mention the agglomeration deficit. So it seems this was something, I should say, that was a rare occurrence and now seems to be almost an annual occurrence. We had just a few years ago, it was a debt of about $212 million, and in 2020, and now in 2021, it was $87.9 million. So whereas having agglomeration deficit was a rare occurrence, it now seems to be an annual occurrence, and the question is just how much will that deficit be? En termes d'administration générale, l'augmentation, c'était 3,6%. En général, c'était plus bas que le taux d'inflation. So we see the increase 3.6% in terms of our local administration. That's, again, keeping in line with inflation. For our public safety, 5.99%, a little bit higher, but there were some cost of living adjustments and others in here. But again, the goal is continue to maintain our services and make sure that we have all the equipment we need and staffing. En termes de travaux publics, je sais que la directrice et tout le département a fait un grand travail pour essayer de trouver une façon de diminuer le budget un peu. Je remercie la directrice des travaux publics. I want to thank the director of Public Works. Alors, l'augmentation pour les travaux publics, c'était 1,43%. And we hopefully we won't get too much snow next year and we'll be able to keep this budget low. In terms of water, as mentioned, the increase, a big chunk of this increase is based on the increase in the cost of water per cubic meter, and also in terms of the amount of water that is used. Now, and I should also mention, these are, in terms of the agglomeration apportionment, in terms of the water purchase, these are estimates. So this is a bit of a tricky one. Our water for Côte Saint-Luc is measured on December 31st at the end of the year. And so we don't actually know what, even for this year, we don't know what our full water use will be till December 31st, when all the water meters are read. And same will be true, of course, for next year. So these are just estimates. We hope to keep the water usage as low as possible, and that'll help keep our tax rate low. So we encourage residents to try to be as conscientious in terms of their water use. And I should also mention we included in here some money to deal with lead, and I'll talk about that in a moment on the next slide, and for additional expenses for black bins, for garbage bins, just to make sure that residents have all the bins that they need. In terms of the water for lead, or the water distribution in terms of lead service lines, so we put in place a program, I guess this was 2 years ago, for water filter rebates. So there's two types of rebates. There's a $50 rebate and a $200 rebate. The $50 rebate is for your standard water filter. It could be a Brita-style filter or one that is attached to the sink. The $200 for under the sink. And the goal is to continue to make sure all the residents are safe until we can replace all the service lines. I'll mention myself, I have one of the lead filters. There's different certifications. The main one is the NSF 53. Again, I encourage residents to go to our city website for more information, and please use the filters if you live in a home that was built during the years where lead may have been used for the service line. And I'll mention we are working on an action plan in 2023 to try to deal with all the lead service lines throughout the city. It will take several years. So again, in the meantime, please continue to use the water filters. En termes des prochaines sections, c'est les dépenses pour les loisirs et culture. L'augmentation en total, c'est 2,57%. Alors, c'est moins que le taux d'inflation. Et on peut voir dans tous les départements, c'est des petites augmentations, but all of them in line or below the rate of inflation. En termes de bibliothèque publique Eleanor London, ici encore, l'augmentation, c'est même moins que le taux d'inflation. Et on a mis en place une nouvelle mesure pour essayer de sauvegarder un peu d'argent et sans réduire les services. On a demandé aux directrices des bibliothèques. Elle nous a dit que le samedi soir, il n'y avait pas beaucoup de monde à la bibliothèque, alors on a réduit les heures, comme c'est déjà le vendredi. Alors pour vendredi et samedi, et ça commence dans le mois de janvier, les heures seront de 10 heures à 18 heures. Pour le dimanche au jeudi, c'est de 10 heures à 22 heures. So just to repeat that, for Friday and Saturday, we'll now have, well, Friday already, but Saturday as well. The library will be open from 10 to 6, and for Sunday to Thursday from 10 to 10 p.m. And the goal here was to try to reduce budget slightly, or reduce the increase as much as possible to lower the tax rate. At the same time, having the least effect on our users. And from the director of libraries, we were told that Saturday night was the night where they had the least number of residents using the library. In terms of our debt service, financing costs, and CMM, So here we're seeing an increase in terms of interest and capital repayments. And again, this is based on the interest rates going up, and capital repayments is just based on the cycle of our loans as they come through. And we have put in place a system reserve, which is only $50,000 less than previously at $125,000, but we felt the need to have a small reserve just in case of emergency. In terms of some of the other expenses, again, the main one to speak about there is $2.1 million from the surplus. And I'll go to the next slide to give a bit more background on that. Alors, on avait reçu une subvention du ministère des Affaires municipales de 2,9 millions de dollars. C'était pour les coûts associés avec le COVID-19 et l'augmentation des taxes de l'agglomération. On pensait qu'on aurait besoin de cette subvention dans l'année 2022, mais on n'avait pas besoin. Alors, pour l'année prochaine, pour 2023, on va utiliser 2,1 millions de dollars et il nous reste à peu près 860 000 dollars qu'on peut utiliser en 2024. So just in terms of the general, to cover the total expenses, so our total expenses are $84 million, and we factor in depreciation, which is a non-cash item, $7.3 million. En termes de dépenses en général, comme je disais tout à l'heure, l'agglomération, c'est le plus grand parti, 42,3%. On a l'administration, des travaux publics, de distribution de l'eau, etc. In terms of the depreciation related to capital expenses, so we have a depreciation of $7.3 million. It has no effect on the surplus or on the deficit, but this is a requirement from the provincial government since January 1st of 2022 that we need to report on the depreciation every year. So a summary again of the operating budget. So the total increase is about 7.4%. And again, the largest factor in there is a 14% increase in terms of the agglomeration apportionment, in spite of only a 3.48% on the local side. Ici, on peut voir les taux de taxes foncières pour les résidents. Alors, on peut voir pour les propriétés résidentielles, pour les logements de 6+, et les terrains vacants. On a aussi les réserves d'eau et les réserves de la voirie. And here we have the municipal tax rates. These are for non-residential properties, and this is something we put in place back in 2020 to 2022 for in terms of having subcategories. We seem to be the first city on the island, although I know other cities are interested in following our lead, but we have different categories. The goal of this is to help small and medium-sized businesses and make sure that they are not hit as hard in terms of the tax increases. So you see the different tax rates for those different subcategories, as well as the water reserve and road reserve. Ça, c'est encore un exemple de maison résidentielle moyenne. Ça inclut les maisons, les condos et les maisons de ville. Encore, c'est une augmentation de 5,95%. Now, this is an interesting slide. So again, when we looked at the average home that had an increase of 38.9%, we saw that, oh, hold on, I'm running low. Just give me 1 second. Okay. All right, what we see is that for 8.6% of homes, they'll have an increase of less than 3%. 34% will have an increase between 3 and 5%. 23% of homes will see an increase between 5 and 6.5. 8.9% will see between 6.5 and 8%. And I hate to say it, 25% of homes will see an increase greater than 8%. And those are generally homes that are seeing an increase in their evaluation well, I would say close to 50%, 48, 49, 50%, and so on. And again, a reminder, those increases in evaluation come from the central city, come from Montreal, do not come from Côte Saint-Luc. So, sometimes we know residents are not happy, but a reminder not to shoot the messenger. In terms of capital investment project, le budget d'investissement, so I'm going to focus, je vais parler un peu des projets pour 2023. Alors ça, c'est juste les grands projets en général. Je vais parler un peu plus de détails dans un moment. Alors, il y a des travaux de gainage, des conduites d'égout et d'aqueduc. Il y a le remplacement des conduits de service de plomb. Il y a le projet de resurfage, les lampadaires, un peu de travail sur les vestiaires pour les piscines extérieures, les parcs, et aussi remplacement de la toiture pour l'annexe. Et je vais parler un peu dans plus de détails sur les projets. So, in terms of water infrastructure, so we're in the last, or we're beginning the last year of the tech grant, the TCQ, and this is a grant that is from the gas tax, the provincial and federal gas tax. It's managed through the provincial government. So in 2023, we're going to be working on aqueduct, rainwater, and wastewater sleeving. So this year we did 807, well, I'll mention in terms of lead, we did 877 pneumatic excavations, including my own house was done, and one of those 877, and 33 lead service replacements. We did also 26 more as part of the water infrastructure, and another 62 in terms of road resurfacing. For next year, for 2023, we'll be doing 243 pneumatic excavations, and this is where we dig a small hole and look at the pipe to examine it to see if it is in fact copper or lead, or which part is copper or lead, the residential side versus the city side. And we'll be doing 47 lead service replacements. In addition, there'll be some that are part of the road resurfacing project, and some additional ones may be done as needed throughout the year. But in 2023, we'll be coming out with a larger plan to remove all the lead service lines. En termes des statistiques sur le conduit d'eau, alors jusqu'à la fin d'année, on a remplacé déjà 17 476 mètres de réseau par remplacé. On a fait le gainage, ou gainé plus de 17 000 mètres de nos tuyaux. Et c'est à peu près un quart, à peu près 24% du réseau en général. Et on a une diminution en termes des interruptions de conduits d'eau. La moyenne, c'était plus de 28 par année. Maintenant, c'est moins de 10 par année. So we went from 28 to 10, just less than 10 on average per year. However, I should say sometimes the cost of those water main breaks can be expensive. So the goal is to continue to keep that number as low as possible. In terms of road resurfacing, 2023 is a big year. We're going to be doing quite a few roads. So I'll just read them quick. There's sections of Sir Winston Churchill, a few blocks of Cavendish Boulevard, Hartwell, Merton between Lyndale and Glencrest, Parkhaven between Wavell and Chamberlain, and a section of Fleet between Cavendish and Pinedale. We're also going to be doing more sidewalks. So we've done about 6,800 meters of sidewalk in the last 5 years. So about over 1,000 meters per year, and we're going to continue to do that. And we're at approximately 782 LED streetlights, although I thought we'd hit 800. So 782 LED streetlights have been replaced to date, and we're going to continue to do more. I know there were a few that were done just in the last few weeks. I noticed them as I drive. It makes the city brighter and safer as well, and more energy efficient. We're saving on our hydro bill as we continue to do that. And I should mention I've replaced most of the lights in my house with LEDs as well. Here is a map. Ici, on peut voir une carte des rues qu'on a déjà fait le resurfage dans les dernières années. So this is a map. We can see the roads that have been resurfaced over the last 20 years. In terms of parks and public spaces, we are increasing and continuing to plant more trees. And since 2015, we have planted 2,412 trees. And in a moment, I'll show a slide showing that we are finally in a surplus of trees, I'm happy to report. We had been in a tree deficit up until last year, so finally I can say that we've turned the corner. We're in a surplus in terms of planting more trees than we've cut down, the majority of which had been cut down because of the emerald ash borer. In terms of parks, these are some small park projects. So we have some work in Rembrandt, in Richard Schwartz Park. I'm happy to report we'll be doing some upgrades to the water features, to the splash pad. There's also a chalet roof replacement at Itzhak Rabin, some work on the water features at Fayon Park, and for Mitchell Brownstein Park, we'll be doing a bathroom facility installation. And that's something that we're continuing to do. We did one in Schuster Park this year. Some work at Trudeau Park in terms of pickleball courts, Kerwin Park for the fences, and I should say this is something that we had some issues with the existing fence and became urgent to be done, and a fence for the median on Cavendish that had been damaged a few years ago. Oh, and I'll just mention the work on the chalet, the annex and the pickleball court will be covered by the surplus, cumulative surplus. Ça, c'est les statistiques pour les arbres. Alors, comme je disais, on est dans un surplus. Alors, on était dans un déficit pour plusieurs années. Maintenant, un surplus de 310 arbres et on espère que l'année prochaine, on va planter beaucoup plus d'arbres qu'on doit abattre. In terms of some other building updates, we're going to be changing the locker rooms at the outdoor pool. For those residents who use the outdoor pool, we did a major upgrade of the pool itself, but we did not touch the locker rooms, which are still the original ones going back probably to the 60s or early 70s. So those are going to be upgraded. We have work on the building envelope at the Singerin Park Chalet, the ACC roof and building envelope, where again we've had some issues with the existing roof, and there's some legal matters in terms of the company that built it we're resolving. And in terms of the annex, the roof replacement, and again the work on the annex for 2023 will be covered by the cumulative surplus. En termes des véhicules, on va acheter quelques véhicules hybrides pour la sécurité publique qui remplacent des véhicules de 2017, un 10 roues avec dumper pour les travaux publics remplaçant un véhicule de 2006 et un tracteur avec épandeur de sel qui remplace un véhicule de 2009. In terms of some other equipment in general, so these are smaller projects, although many of them that are covered by the working fund. It includes things like security cameras, computers, laptops, some replacement furniture for the library, some furniture for the Kerwin Park Chalet, which hopefully will be opening soon, and a shed for Public Works, and a stage for the library, which actually will be covered in part by donations. But basically, these are usually smaller projects, and the way the working fund works is we are borrowing money from ourselves to do it, which means we don't have to pay any interest, which is nice, especially today in a day of rising interest rates. Ça, c'est un sommaire du plan triennal des investissements. On peut voir la grande partie, c'est en termes de l'infrastructure. On peut voir l'immeuble, les véhicules, l'ameublement. On peut voir aussi les budgets provisoire pour 2024 et 2025. So I should mention, we can see the budget, the preliminary budget for 2024, 2025. I should mention that those are still preliminary, and those will change between now and the next budget. And also mention, here we can see some of the grants we received. 2023 is the last year of the current tech grant, which is again the gas tax grant. So we'll be receiving a significant amount. The new grant should start in 2024, and we'll be seeing, of course, those funds coming in more in 2026 and 2027. But I'll just mention that even though, I should also mention, even though we adopt all these projects, or will be adopting the budget in these projects in the upcoming days, of course, we still, when it comes time for each individual project, whether it be a road repair or renovation to any park, We still are going to go through the process to decide whether each one will be done, assuming the price is as expected. So that's something that we do throughout the year. And with that, I finished just under the, I promised I would finish just under the hour, so I'll take my last minute or two just to say again, a special thank you once again to our city treasurer, Angelo Marino, and his team for all their hard work in preparing the budget. As I mentioned, this year, certainly for me, was the toughest. It required the treasurer, required all the directors, the city manager, to really go back again and take another look and sharpen their pencils and try to find ways to save money as much as possible and bring down the tax increase, which we knew would hit residents hard. It hits all of us. So we are all residents, we're all taxpayers ourselves. So I want to take a moment again to thank the city treasurer, the entire team, for all their hard work behind the scenes, especially this year, which we know was the toughest. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Erdley, for a great presentation. And of course, to our city treasurer, Angelo Marino, for his excellent work every year, and particularly this very difficult year. It's clearly very unfair that we should have to have this type of increase. We know that times are tough. Cost of living has been close to almost 7%, and we came to a situation where we had to cut our local spending. We had to cut our local spending despite inflation to basically half of what it's costing us to run the city, meaning we had to cut here and there, hopefully in areas mostly that residents won't feel the pinch. But we had to do that because we're being downloaded so much from the agglo. We're not getting any more service for police, for any of the services that the agglo provides. And yet the present formula allows them to take advantage of a situation and charge us more. It's has to be changed. We're of course making our representations and considering all types of legal action, and we're working with the ASM mayors. We understand there is one city already, Beaconsfield, that has a case going. And something does have to change because it's just not right, and we can't continue in this way. So we've done our job, but we can't obviously every year cut local spending by half of what it really costs to run the city, which is, coming up with what is the final? 3.9 or 3 point for the local budget? The local part. 3.5. So 3.5. We all know we're living it when we know that the cost of inflation is 7%. We went to 3.5. But our increase is all pushed up based on the downloading from the agglo. So we will continue our best efforts and thank all departments, not only our city treasurer, but all the directors for really sharpening their pencils and finding ways to cut expenses in each department throughout the city. So I want to thank each and every director for doing that, and as well as our treasurer, and we move on. So thank you so much. Are there any other questions or comments from people who wanted to speak? I don't see this. Do you have the YouTube video? I think, does Councillor Cohen want to speak now? Did you want to make a comment, Councillor Cohen?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wasn't able to be there in person tonight, but I will be there on Wednesday night. I want to first of all commend Angelo Marino and our entire management team, all of our directors, for doing an amazing job. This was, for sure, in my 17 years, the most difficult budget process. I also want to thank Councillor Erdley for the magnificent job he's done, overseeing the portfolio and the presentation tonight. I think anyone who comes to us with a question, because I'm already getting it from my constituents, well, couldn't you keep the taxes down? I hope, Councillor Erdley, that your PowerPoint could be posted on our website in English and French so that people can read line by line, because I think when people read and hear exactly what you put down, there's no question that we've done everything we possibly can to keep the taxes down. It's unfortunate I think for the Conference of Suburban Mayors, the demerged municipalities, it's only Montreal East that is probably a municipality that the CAC would be worried about, because they're really not worried about a bunch of liberal strongholds. And somehow, some way, I hope that municipalities across the province, others who are being affected with the taxes, not as much as we are, speak up, because we need the areas where the CAC has representation for them to feel some political pressure to do something. And we do have, by the way, not only do we have Elizabeth Prass as our excellent new MNA, but we also have, living in our community, a minister, Pascal Derry, and perhaps we can also make representation to her, because while Côte Saint-Luc is going up by 5.9%, I believe her municipality in Hampstead is going up quite a bit more. So again, congratulations, thank you, and we are doing the best we can.
Thank you, Councillor Cohen. Any other comments? So we're going to go for the adoption of the budget of 2023. All in favor? Oh, you still
I have to, sorry, just for official purposes.
Yeah.
Well, actually, before I read it, just to mention to Councillor Cohen's point, that the PowerPoint is available on our city website, both in English and in French. There's also an Excel version of the budget and a PDF of the spreadsheets that are available on the website. And I guess the presentation, the recording of the presentation will be posted as soon as our Director of Communication has a moment to do that. So I'll read the official resolution. Be it resolved that the Côte Saint-Luc City Council hereby adopts the 2023 operating budget as follows: revenues of $84,208,150, expenses and appropriation of $84,208,150, hereby annexed to the minutes to form an integral part of said document entitled Appendix 1.
Moved by Councillor Erdely, seconded by Councillor Schuster. Any discussion further? Anything else you want to add? Anybody? No? Okay, all in favor? Anyone opposed? It's carried unanimously, and now we move to item number 3, which is the adoption of the 3-year program of capital expenditures for 2023, 24, and 25. Councillor Erdely.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Be it resolved that the Côte Saint-Luc City Council hereby accepts and adopts the 3-year capital expenditure plan for 2023, 2024, 2025 years, totaling $34,809,650 plus applicable taxes, hereby annexed to the minutes to form an integral part of said document entitled Appendix 2.
Thank you, Councillor Erdely, seconded by Councillor Azarad. Any discussion?
So just to reiterate, so technically it's a 3-year budget. However, tonight we focus more on the 2023 portion. So we do the 3-year planning. However, each year we do make adjustments. So even though we put an item in 2024, 2025, it's something that we from time to time revise. So we'll of course be sharing more updates on that in the next budget and so on. Thank you.
So it's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Anyone opposed? It's carried unanimously, and we move to the adjournment of the meeting. Who would like to adjourn? And then we'll go with the second meeting. Moved to adjourn by Councillor Kajawski, seconded by Councillor Schuster. All in favor? We are adjourned, and now there's another meeting this evening, so don't, you people watching, stay on for another meeting, which is a 7 o'clock meeting, special meeting for the City of Côte Saint-Luc for December 19th, 2022. And again, there's another question period, if there's any questions for this meeting. I don't think so, but if there are there any? No. So then we'll go to item number 1. Councillor Erdely, if you would, you have it in front of you or not? Or does somebody have the appointment of Councillor Dita Burku as maire suppléant of the City of Côte Saint-Luc?
If you want, I have it in front of me.
Sure.
Be it resolved that Councillor Dita Burku is and shall be named mairesse suppléante of the City of Côte Saint-Luc effective January 17, 2023, up to and until the January 2024 regular meeting of council inclusively, and further that the aforementioned Councillor Burku shall have and may exercise the powers of the mayor when the said mayor is absent or unable to perform the duties of his office.
Okay, so this is a special, we have a bylaw that allows to have a deputy mayor for 1 year, and Councillor Burkou's done an excellent job in my first year of this mandate, and now we're looking forward to another year of great work representing the city at the Aglo. She has the knowledge and experience and knows all the players there and does an excellent job representing us at the Aglo, as well as fulfilling all the duties of deputy mayor. So moved by Councillor Erdely, seconded by Councillor Schuster. Any discussion further? All in favor? Yeah, everybody votes, I think. I think so, yeah. Carried unanimously. And now we go to item number 3, which is you're going to be doing all of these, Councillor Erdely, yourself, except there's certain notices of motions where, so certain ones you have to have seconded and others that you do yourself up until number 7. So I'll let you start with number 3.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Be it resolved that bylaw 2600, entitled bylaw 2600 concerning tariffs for the city of Côte Saint-Luc for the fiscal year 2023 be and is hereby adopted.
Moved by Councillor Erdely, seconded by Councillor Burkou. Any discussion?
So I'll just explain briefly. So this is an update to our tariff bylaw. So this is something that incorporates all the tariffs for things like urban planning, public works, the library, and public security, and so on. I would say most of them are in line with increases in inflation. One that I mentioned last week that I'll remind residents is for those who have overnight parking permits. For the first car, for the initial car, there's no increase. But if someone has a second or third or fourth car, it's an increase of $5 per month for the additional vehicle.
Okay, so that's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
I just like to
Yeah, go ahead. Another
thank you,
comment?
Mr. Mayor. In light of the current fiscal environment, this tariff review is the beginning of a process whereby we have addressed cost effectiveness of some tariffs. The city now needs to move forward in examining our review generating practices and also bringing those in line. So hopefully this is just the beginning. We're going to be able to do a lot more in the coming year.
Thank you. Any more discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. And the next one, Councillor Erdely.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hereby give notice of motion that bylaw 2612 to be entitled bylaw concerning taxes of the city of Côte Saint-Luc for the fiscal year 2023 will be presented at a later meeting for adoption. Furthermore, I'm mentioning the object and scope of the bylaw and tabling a draft of bylaw 2612.
Thank you. There's any discussion on that?
So I'll just mention that these are the tax rates that we had discussed, that I discussed in my presentation, and these will be adopted on Wednesday evening at 6:30. Just double checking the time. Yeah, Wednesday evening at 6:30 we'll be officially doing the adoption of the bylaw.
Excellent. Now number 5, which is another notice of motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just flipping. I hereby give notice of motion that bylaw 2574-2, amending bylaw 2574 to be entitled bylaw 2574, instituting a financial assistance program for the purchase and installation of a home electric charging station in order to amend the source of financing to the 2023 operating budget. Furthermore, I'm giving notice of motion of the bylaw 2574-2 and mentioning the object and scope of the bylaw as well.
Thank you. Any discussion on that?
So I'll just share, we are changing the source. This is for the rebate for those that have an electric charging station in their home that is installed. So we're doing this for 2 reasons. We're changing the source of financing. Originally, I believe it was from the surplus, and now it's from the operating budget. And we are also reducing it slightly. So the total amount will be $7,500 instead of $15,000. That is the amount for the current year. And this will be presented at, also I believe, at the meeting on Wednesday.
Yeah. Okay. And now you go to 6, which is approval of working fund projects.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Be it resolved that for the 2023 fiscal year, the City Council approves the borrowing pursuant to a non-interest-bearing loans from its working fund for the following projects: purchase and installation of a fence on the median of Cavendish Boulevard up to a maximum of $75,000 plus applicable tax to be amortized over 5 years. Purchase and installation of security cameras up to a maximum of $16,200 plus applicable taxes to be amortized for a period of 5 years. Purchase of computers and accessories up to a maximum of $15,750 plus applicable taxes to be amortized over a period of 5 years. And just checking, I think they're almost all 5 years. So maybe I'll just mention those that are, I think there's just one that's 10 years. So we'll assume they're all 5 years except for the one that's I'll mention specifically. Replacement of library reference desk furniture up to a maximum of $20,000 plus applicable taxes. Purchase of study tables for the library's collaborative space up to a maximum of $20,000 plus applicable taxes. Purchase and installation of RFID conversion equipment software up to a maximum of $100,000 plus applicable taxes. Purchase and installation of a laptop lending kiosk and laptop computers up to a maximum of $32,200 plus applicable taxes. Furniture upgrades for the library cafe up to a maximum of $10,000 plus applicable taxes. Purchase and installation of dedicated HVAC unit for the ACC server room up to a maximum of $17,400 plus applicable taxes. Web conversion control or web control conversion for the recreation and gymnasium up to a maximum of $30,800 plus applicable taxes. Purchase of furniture for the Kerwin Park Chalet up to a maximum of $10,000 plus applicable taxes. Purchase and installation of building shed for Public Works yards up to a maximum of $82,000 plus applicable taxes. And this one is to be amortized over a period of 10 years. And next, purchase of exterior storage sheds for recreation up to a maximum of $40,400 plus applicable taxes to be amortized over 5 years, and that the city shall provide every year out of its general fund a sum sufficient to repay the various loans back into the working fund.
Thank you, Councillor Erdely. Seconded by Councillor Schuster. Any discussion, Councillor Erdely?
So I'll just mention, so these are the working fund projects. I guess there were about 13 of them. So again, these are usually for smaller projects, most of with shorter amortization periods, generally 5 with the exception of one being 10 years. So you can see here a lot of work, some work, let's say in the library, on computers, on technology. We have the fence on Cavendish Boulevard, on the median, which is just north of the underpass, which is in need of repair. And as mentioned, we do it through what's called the working fund, and this is a way that the city borrows money from itself. And again, when we borrow money from ourselves, we don't have to pay interest, and we do actually pay it back into this fund, so we continue to use this fund year to year for these small projects. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So it's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Carried unanimously, and now we move to another notice of motion, number 7.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hereby give notice of motion that draft bylaw 2470 to be entitled bylaw 2470-3, amending bylaw 2470 entitled bylaw to regulate nuisance in order to add infractions concerning public property will be presented at a later meeting for adoption. Furthermore, I'm mentioning the object and scope of the draft bylaw.
Thank you.
Oh, and sorry, and I'm also tabling the draft bylaw as well. Yes. So I'll mention briefly. So this has to do with an individual or individuals who are damaging or destroying urban property. So in other words, city property. So it could be, for example, in a park. It could be a city, city building. And the goal is to of course, hopefully limit the damage to city property and enable us to include this in our 2470. Is that our nuisance bylaw?
Yes,
Yeah.
so currently, we have an infraction, and what we're doing is we're separating out that infraction into various categories. So when statements of offense are issued, they'll be issued per category and not for the entire paragraph of the infraction. So it's exactly as you explained, Councillor Erdely. This is part of our nuisance bylaw, and it talks about when public property is destroyed. It can be destroyed in various facets, and if it is destroyed and we know who the offenders are, aside from collecting on the civil damages, we are also going to issue statements of offense for those who deface it or do it in an inappropriate manner.
No, I think it makes sense. So if someone is damaging our city property, this is another tool in our arsenal to
Exactly.
be able to find them.
And it's further enhanced in the sense that it's now separated out by categories. So each category is its own infraction.
Okay. So now we go to item number 8. Item number 8, and that would be Councillor Kajewski.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Be it resolved that the City of Côte Saint-Luc hereby awards a contract to Groupe Civitas, Inc. for professional services regarding road resurfacing for a total amount of $224,792.72 plus applicable taxes, that furthermore the city may consider an amount of 10% plus applicable taxes for any potential contingencies and extras if required, that shall first be approved according to the city's procedures, that the described expenses shall be financed from the tech grant, that Treasurer's Certificate number TC-22-0165 dated December 15, 2022 has been issued by the City Treasurer attesting to the availability of funds to cover the described expenses, that the Director of Urban Development is hereby appointed to proceed with the evaluation of Groupe Civitas, Inc.'s performance within this tendered contract.
Thank you, Councillor Kajewski. Seconded by Councillor Azarad. Any discussion? Councillor Kajewski?
Yes, just quickly, this is the professional services awarding of the contract to get our road resurfacing prepared for this summer and fall of 2023. And good news in all this is we're doing several streets, including Sir Winston Churchill, Hartwell, a portion of Merton, the Cavendish Overpass, Parkhaven, between Chamberlain and Wavell, Cavendish southbound from Kildare to Fleet as just scarification, as well as Cavendish Overpass, I should mention, Fleet eastbound, Cavendish to Pinedale scarification, as well as near in front of the fire station. And we'll make sure, obviously, to be mindful of the traffic concerns of residents as we prepare for this road resurface.
Thank you, Councillor Kajewski. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Carried unanimously. And we move to item 9. Councillor Berkoup. Yep. Ratification of filing of proceedings.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Be it resolved that the preamble of this resolution shall form part of the resolution as if cited hereinafter at length, that the City of Côte Saint-Luc Council hereby ratifies the filing of the proceedings, and that Council hereby takes cognizance of the settlement with the insurer in the amount of $5,761.85, including all applicable taxes. Maybe I should have just summarized the whereases. So I'm going to go back. Whereas on September 21st, 2022, City of Côte Saint-Luc noticed that a vehicle belonging to Construction Camara hit a lamppost and damaged a street light at the intersection of Robinson and Parkview. Whereas on October 26th, the representative of Economical Insurance, namely Crawford and Company, was put on notice with invoice of $5,509.21. Whereas on December 6th, City Côte Saint-Luc filed proceedings against the insurer bearing docket number 500-22-27-55-79-228. And whereas pursuant to this delegation of authority, the Director of Legal Services settled the proceedings for $5,761.85, which represents 99.45% of the value of the debt. And then I read the resolution before. I just want to congratulate, once I get a seconder, okay, everybody. This is, you know, the fast track proceedings that City of Côte Saint-Luc does, and then settles without having to go through protracted litigation. So I really appreciate the work of our legal department headed by Jonathan Schechter, and thank you for that. It's very helpful to be able to collect damages when it's done to us, and also to settle damages when they're done to to the residents. It works out. Thank you very, very much.
Okay, so been moved and seconded. All in favor? Carried unanimously, and move to adjourn. Councillor Zarad, seconded by Councillor Burku. All in favor? We are adjourned, and then we have a little meeting to go over. Okay, so we can go in the committee room.